verhaal dat we deze week gaan lezen komt uit een boek. De link naar dat boek staat in de YouTube-video. Want je kunt het gratis downloaden. Dit boek begon met een stripje waarin de ene dinosaurus aan de andere vraagt: hoe zou de wereld er nou uitzien als je een machine had die in een paar woorden omschrijft hoe je doodgaat? En die strip was zo succesvol uiteindelijk. Daar kwamen zoveel reacties op dat ze een verhalenwedstrijd hebben opengezet. En van die verhalen die werden ingezonden nu dus een boek gewoon gratis online staat. Ik vind het een heel leuk boek. Allemaal korte verhalen. Omdat je zoveel verschillende manieren ziet waarop mensen dan inbeelden hoe je daarmee om kan gaan. En hoe het de maatschappij zou veranderen, hoe het mensen zou veranderen. Ik heb er eentje uitgekozen uit die bundel. Ze zijn niet allemaal even leuk natuurlijk. En sommige ook heel bruut. Degene die wij nu gaan lezen heet Shot by Sniper. Lieutenant Grail crawled through the ashen slop beneath and behind the slanted billboard that half fallen... Ik ga gewoon nog een keertje, jongens. Lieutenant Grail crawled through the ashen slop beneath and behind the slanted billboard that half fallen from the roof above. Its Arabic advert made all but illegible, even to the locals. The machine gun fire crackling through the air was background and indistinct. If one were careless, the sound would become ambient, like the bustling traffic in New York, or the steady hum of a computer. A shot kicked up dirt in front of Grail's face. He pulled himself backward, back to the dubious protection of the fallen sign. A sniper. Shit. He looked across the road. His men hadn't noticed yet. Sniper! Everyone moved at once except for Paula. She was green and waited just a second too long. She turned to face Grail, and as she did, she staggered backward, blood flying from her arm. Gearhead leapt out, grabbed her and pulled her behind the cover of the still-standing wall of a long-destroyed hotel. The sniper waited, silent. Across the street from the fallen billboard, Grail's men looked at him, pasty-faced and wide-eyed. One of the men, Simmons, signed for him to stay put. No shit, Simmons. A panic swept through the men as they crouched behind the wall. They were reacting, damn it, not thinking. And Paula's cries of pain were rattling loose what little cohesion they had. Grail needed to cross the street and reach them, and he needed to do so before this snafu became a foobar. But those 3 little words on that tiny slip of paper kept him from dashing across. The focus of the panic shifted from Paula to Grail. They knew that she'd be fine after all, but the eyes on Grail hadn't the slightest shimmer of hope. No. They all knew Grail would die here. Damn that machine. It'd been a week ago, back when the insurgency seemed stoppable. A couple of rookie privates had found the machine in the wreckage of a casino. Well, Grail called it a casino. The locals insisted it wasn't. The locals insisted a lot of things. The machine still worked. Grail had said to throw the damn thing out, but most of the platoon kicked up a fuss. It's one of the newer models, Gearhead had said, looking at it. 40 different languages. Takes a pinprick of blood. Less than most blood sugar machines. It's supposed to be the wittiest model yet. Oh, come on, Lieutenant. What harm will it do? Machines weren't infallible. That was Grail's sole understanding of computers, and even Gearhead, reluctantly at times, agreed with him. So let the boys, and girls, Grail, you can't forget them, have their fun, right? It says I'm going to drown. Oh, that blows. Paula was yours. Car accident. Ah, what the hell? Mine says killed by cow. A cow? Always knew you'd amount to great things, Simmons. blow me. Hey, Lieutenant! Lieutenant Grail, you gotta try this. I really don't, Grail said. He just doesn't want to see the world's old age in print. Everyone laughed. An explosion and the sound of wrenching metal peeled through the open windows, a distant and painful reality check. Gearhead, Grail said. Take 10 men and go see who killed who. Yes, sir, the skinny youngster said, snapping gum that'd been in his mouth since morning. The rest of the men kept joking about the machine's one-line fortunes, and Simmons, with a half-smile plastered on his face, said, Come on, Lieutenant. It won't hurt you to see what it says. Yeah, Lieutenant, come on. A chorus of come-ons and yes broke out, and Grail couldn't see the harm in a little fun. He stepped up to the machine. It was such a humble thing, and Paula showed him how it worked. It reminded Grail of a slot machine. Maybe that's why it had been in a casino. A tiny slip of paper curled out. Grail ripped it free, read it, stared at it for a moment, and then let it fall to the floor with a shrug. Like jackals, Grail's men fell on the scrap and gaped at it, horror-struck. By nightfall, everyone on base knew how Lieutenant Grail was going to die. The change came the next morning. Some of the men wouldn't talk to Grail unless they had to. Overnight, he'd become the most beloved and still, somehow, least popular man in base. And everyone with something bad to say about Lieutenant Grail, watch out. Everywhere Grail went, his soldiers looked at him with wide, wet eyes, and the colour would swirl out of their faces. They'd utter, Yes, sir, as if the post had arrived with 1,000 pounds of Dear John letters. What harm could a little fun be? Grail snorted at the thought. Aside from bringing morale to an all-time low. Not a damn thing. I want that machine turned into scrap. Yes, sir. You hear me? If it stays on this base, I'll be reincarnated as a locker. Yes, sir. Now, I want to see you do it, Marine. That caused some grumbling. Word went out that old Grail was afraid of the death machine. Who can blame him? They'd say. What the hell did they know? Grail crouched behind the billboard and watched the disaster unfold across the street. His boys and girl, the whole lot of them, in an instant decided that they were going to defy fate, to prove Grail's slip of paper wrong. He couldn't hear what they were saying over the gunfire, and they weren't signalling anything. A bullet sliced through the sign and sent bits of brick from the building behind Grail into the air. The damn thing almost parted his hair. He pressed himself against the ground. He saw Gearhead on the radio, calling an airstrike. Good boy. Simmons put a new mag in his gun and shifted his legs. No, Simmons, stay put. Grail gestured for him to stay down. He didn't. No! But Simmons charged around the corner. Gearhead looked across the ruined street at Grail, and Grail shook his head. Gearhead stopped the others from following. Good boy. Grail ground his teeth. Once, his daughter had left at 1700 hours back at the base in Germany and never reported for dinner. She'd come home at 0100, drunk and battered. Grail knocked a few heads in that night, that was for sure. But the time between 17 and 0100 hours? That excruciating wait? That was how Grail felt when Simmons turned the corner and charged toward the ruins of the office building. A crack shattered the other sounds of the urban fighting, and Grail knew what had happened even before he heard Simmons cry out. Just like he knew what happened that night, so long ago, before his daughter has opened her mouth to start crying. Grail peered over the sign. Simmons was down, hard. The sniper had shot his leg. The bastard was hoping to draw out more. Grail made a gesture at Gearhead. Gearhead shook his head. Grail made ready to spring, putting his back against the sign and shouldering his rifle. This was his job. These were his children. Screw that miserable machine and its miserable opinion. Covering fire! Gearhead screamed. NATO rounds poured upward towards the office building. Grill turned at the edge of the sign and dashed into the street. Throughout, the sniper was silent. Good boy, Gearhead. Grill reached Simmons and winced. The boy's leg was mangled badly. He'd be lucky to keep it. Have to carry him, Grill thought. Lieutenant? Oh, shut up. You gotta live so a cow can kill you. Grill squatted and hefted Simmons up. Boy could use a meal or two extra. Damn, it was hot out. Grill's eyes were glued up to the building. He saw the sniper. He could see into the sniper's eyes, all the way from the ground. They were like brown glass, and the man behind them, the man behind the rifle, hated Grail, hated Simmons, and he'd hate anyone else that stepped into the street. The NATO rounds weren't keeping him down anymore. Grail knew what was going to happen. He always did. He turned away from the sniper. Simmons curled on his shoulders and started running back to cover. If the bastard was going to shoot Grail, he'd have to do it from behind. A puff of dirt flashed up between Grail's legs, as if to say, I don't mind that. But Grail was almost there. Gearhead and the others were still firing, trying to keep the sniper down, but the man behind the rifle had a pair made of brass. Another round zipped past Grail's ear. 10 yards to go. Not even that. But Grail could feel it. The muzzle of the rifle may as well have been pressed against his back. The sniper, he knew, wouldn't miss a third time. A rocket streaked through the heavens. Half of the sniper's building caved in. As Grail turned the corner and set Simmons down, he heard Gearhead yelling into the radio. Kill confirmed! Repeat, kill confirmed! You've got him! Simmons looked up at Grail, his eyes beaming with gratitude and admiration. But sir, your paper said... Other sniper, son. Some other war. Ik vond een mooie verrassing op het einde. En ik vond ook het leuk idee dat het toch aangeeft dat er maar een paar woorden en je denkt dat je weet hoe dingen gaan aflopen, dat je nooit helemaal zeker weet of het wel zo gaat lopen. En dat vond ik ook wel een mooie. Volgende week heb ik een wat langere in gedachten, omdat het dan ook hemelvaartweekend is. En je dan gewoon lekker na de toetsweek en alles ingeleverd te hebben onderuit kunt gaan zitten. En naar een wat heftiger, maar ook heel erg mooi verhaal kan luisteren. Dus volgende week wordt die weer langer. En tot die tijd, geniet ervan.